Three, two,
two,
one.
one.
Launch to success with Vera V.
Hello, my name is Vera V, and I'm an ex-toxic productivity girly. Thank you for welcoming me to this productivity rehab. Just kidding. So this episode is all about how to go from toxic productivity into healthy productivity, and here's why. I went from overworking myself severely to absolute shreds, sleeping 4 hours a night, not really having anything in my life outside of work, and having mental breakdowns every single day because I never felt like what I was doing was enough, even though, once again, I was burning myself out completely, to now succeeding in all areas of my life, from career to relationships to health to self-development, feeling like my life is actually great. Like there's nothing I would change about my life. I just love it so much and I've never experienced that before. So welcome to my podcast, Launch to Success with Vera V. This is a podcast and a space where I help you launch to success in your life, in your wellness, and in your business/career. I'm Vera V, a full-time content creator, social media coach, and an absolute lover of self-improvement, which is primarily what this podcast is about. Today, we'll talk about toxic productivity, what it is, how to spot it, and then how to transition that into a healthy place. And I'll go by personal example because I've been where you are. If you're really struggling with toxic productivity and you know exactly what I'm talking about, and if you don't, you're about to find out, then just know that you're not alone. I've been exactly where you are and I made it out. There's a way out. And we'll get to that way out together. First and foremost, let me start off by defining, because I think definitions are very important. So, toxic productivity is when you sacrifice your health and everything else that you have in your life to be quote unquote productive. And you feel horrible and absolutely horrific because you never feel like you're doing enough. That's why it's called the toxic productivity cycle. It's not just, I'm losing out on sleep once in a while. Sometimes, no, it's you consistently lose out on sleep. You sacrifice your health. Maybe you're not eating enough. Maybe you're not sleeping enough. But you're definitely not hanging out with your friends because you think it's a waste of time. Point is, toxic productivity can look like a million and one different ways. But typically, it takes a hit in your other life areas. Because if we're speaking very generally, and I'm a certified life coach and I can attest to this, I've hosted so many sessions. It's like the Wheel of Life sessions. So, surprise, life coaching is a big part of what I do, in social media coaching too, actually. Because a lot of that is just opening up your mind and your capacity for welcoming in new people and new ideas. But I have to make a whole episode about this. Speaking very generally, you have 4 areas of life. Okay, so you're a person or in the middle, and it's like you have these 4 long roads, and those are your journeys, the individual life areas. First and foremost, you have career, business, money, anything related to that. A lot of that is like social self-realization, I guess would be the best way to put it, because it is working towards something, it's creating something, even if you're working in a company, and it's showing up in the world, which is what makes that social. It goes by social vector. You also have relationships, which are also very social. Obviously, that's romantic relationships, love, friendships, acquaintanceships, even work relations. How you feel about yourself, I would argue, also goes into that. That's also very much a social vector, right? And then you have health. That's social vector, emotional vector, spiritual vector, I would argue, and most importantly, physical vector, because I feel like that's really where that stems from. That's the third area of your life. And then obviously you have self-development. Those are the things that you do just for yourself to develop as a person. Maybe it's traveling, maybe it's reading new books, maybe it's picking up new hobbies, but it's just more centered on you, and it's a different sort of vector, if that makes sense. It's just things that you do purely for yourself to develop as a person. That's how I like to think of it. Okay. And so with toxic productivity, primarily from what I've seen, and I've worked with a lot of clients who face the same thing, and with myself as well, obviously, with that, you're primarily anchoring everything you have in that career, business, money vector. Maybe the health vector too. It can get really toxic there. But once again, this is not about the health factor and getting toxic there, like eating disorders, overworking, overtraining. In that way, I'm not going to talk about because I haven't faced that, so I cannot attest to that. I'm not a certified professional in that sphere either. But with the work, it's like you're pouring all your eggs, anything you have, all the liquids within yourself into that career vector, and you have nothing else going for yourself. That's what toxic productivity looks like. And at the end of the day, if you really take a moment and pause, it does not leave you fulfilled. What you do does not leave you happy. And there's a difference here, because oftentimes we're like, oh, I hate going to school, I hate going to work. But that's truly because we just do not want to take responsibility for the fact that we do have to go to school. We do have to go to work if we want to live the life that we want to live. So that's one thing. But the other thing with toxic productivity, it's almost like you're in this constant phase of burnout, but like you cannot stop because you never feel like you're good enough. That's what I faced. And that's what commonly it looks like. Once again, it can look very different. But a telltale sign that your productivity is becoming toxic is when you're sacrificing your health, sleep, food, wellness practices, your routines, and And relationships too is a very big one as well. When you stop hanging out with your friends, when you cut out all your friends, when you do not go on dates, not just because it's just not like the time in your life to do that, but just because you're like, oh my gosh, this is a waste of time. Like I have to keep working. And here's the thing. We all have our grindset mindset eras. Grindset mindset is a very positive thing. I like to think it's like you have a goal, you see nothing else. Like you see no obstacles. You just work towards your goal. I love the grindset mindset. I'm in the grindset mindset a lot of the time. There's nothing wrong with the grindset mindset. It's not the toxic grindset mindset. So all of us have a grindset mindset era when we're focusing on work more than anything. That's completely fine. But it's all about finding that balance, which is what this episode is all about. And my recent productivity journey has been all about as well. So now that we're done with the productivity definitions of toxic productivity, let's quickly talk about healthy productivity and what that looks like. Healthy productivity is when you have goals in all your life areas, like the four that we mentioned, right? Not just work, not just health, but also relationships. You have things that you want to work in relationships, things that you do just for yourself, for your self development. Maybe that's doing makeup and practicing makeup just because you love it. That's self development and that's important because healthy productivity elevates you. That's the thing that was missing for such a long time. And I did not know this. But when you're productive in a healthy way, all the time that you spend with your friends or with your partner, all the time that you spend working on your body and just practicing spirituality, those are the things that feed your other life areas. That's like the energy that you get for your other life areas, right? The biggest way to get energy, aside from sleeping and eating, obviously, is by practicing your hobbies. And that's healthy productivity. Maybe it's not outright productive to some people because it's like productivity is just grinding it away. maybe, maybe grinding it away in the coal mines. Maybe to some, but to me personally, I think if that feeds your soul and that elevates you, that gives you just life energy to accomplish more and to live aligned with your purpose more, then that's productive. Now that we've done that, let's talk about my eras real quick, okay? First, we'll start out with the 2021 Vera era. This is an era I was genuinely scared of. Like, I was scared of myself. Not in that time, but now. Because obviously, launched as a cast podcast, it was first called Stories by Vera V. And if you look at the first episodes, they're in that era. Like, I was like talking about sleeping 3 hours a day and like all of that. It's crazy. I was crazy. Okay, and we'll get to that. Like, I'm going to share my daily schedule and my core beliefs. But something important to note is that it's felt like I always had like a little motor within myself, in a sense where I don't know where it stems from exactly, because I still have that to this day. But I just love to be doing things. I just do. It's really hard for me to just do nothing. It is extremely challenging because I think I'm a very fast person. Even the way that I talk, I've tried to slow down for this one, just so I'm a little bit more intentional. It's also 9 p.m. and I came back from a run. I was talking about balance, it being 9:32 p.m. Oh, it's okay. I'm gonna get a good night's sleep, but that's beside the point. So as I was saying, it's always like I had this sort of thing within myself that just never really allowed me to kind of stop, if that makes sense. Nowadays, I'm a lot better with it, right? But I think internally, by nature, I just have this drive and this thirst for life, and there's nothing really I can do about it. I don't know how to explain it. I've just always had it, okay? But in 2021, that drive and that thirst was crazy. And when I say crazy, I don't mean just like, it was crazy. No, it was absolutely insane. First and foremost, or I guess secondly, I've been undersleeping since I was like 12 years old. In sixth grade, I think it started, because I remember doing projects late into the night. Not because like I really needed that much time, but because I just wasn't productive with the time I had. So I was like, well, nighttime is the only time to do it. And nighttime is when I got a lot of peace and quiet, which also felt nice for my 12-year-old self, craving independence, which obviously was pretty great. So with undersleeping, I think also a big part of it is because in my family, sleep was never really prioritized. Like, it was never like, oh my gosh, get good sleep, guys. Like, so super important for your development. I've never been told that once. And obviously that's something that I'm definitely going to tell my children, especially at developmental ages. When you're a teenager, you need to be getting good sleep because your brain is literally growing and developing. Like, maybe that's affected me in some ways. I don't know. I don't really want to think about it, TBH, but maybe. And then also another big influence was my dad. He's a productivity king, okay, but I would argue that sometimes that leans into the side of toxic, which personally I'm not a fan of now. I've matured and I've grown, and obviously now I have my own opinions. Like, I feel genuinely like I'm just my whole person with my beliefs, and it's okay to disagree with my parents and like with whatever my family thinks, because I'm very close with my family. They're my absolute best friends, and for a long time, long time, I just took my whatever my parents told me as just the law, even above the law, like the holy law. Like, I just took it as my Bible. Whatever they told me, I just believed it wholeheartedly. Because I was like, my parents know the truth and nothing but the truth, Which, because I have a great relationship with my parents, like, I absolutely love them, right? So that didn't really allow any room for a mistake in my dad's eyes, for example. So he would tell me a lot of stories about like success and sleep, and it's like Elon Musk worked for 19 hours a day, then rolled onto his table to sleep for 4 hours, and then rolled back up and worked again. And that's the only way to be successful in life. You don't make money unless you're busting your ass every single day. Which, in his experience, yeah, of course that's true. But the thing about things that your parents tell you is that obviously they want the best for you, but that's coming from their experience. I'm a whole different person. I have a whole different reality. I'm a completely self sufficient person. Like, I can proudly say, and I've talked about this in my previous episodes, but I pay for my life. Like, there's nobody else pitching in. Like, it's just me. Anything I do, anything I buy, anything I get. And it's been like that for some time now. It's just solely on me, you know? So my life is truly rooted in my own experience. And just because for my dad, that was like the thing, you know? And obviously that kind of sucks. Like, that's rough. Or like for my grandma, when she would have to walk like 13 kilometers in the snow to get to school barefoot. That was their reality, and I respect it. But for me, my reality is different. So the beliefs do not have to carry over from one reality to another. That was a big part of me, honestly, just kind of separating myself from ideas that my parents gave to me and just kind of instead making my mind up about certain things. Because essentially, it's your parents' first time living too, just the same as it is for you. And it's really hard to realize, especially when you did grow up with a great relationship with your parents, because you just listen to everything they tell you. And obviously, they want the best for you and they have a lot of wisdom. But essentially, the mistakes that you make are your mistakes to make, you know? And the conclusions they come to are yours to come to. And you should have unique conclusions than those of your parents or your sisters or your friends, because you're a unique person with unique life experiences. So my dad definitely influenced me. You can see that in a lot of my content. I've always viewed my content as art. And if you go to the very beginning of 2021, like a lot of it's like discipline kills, or sorry, laziness kills. Discipline is the only way to do it. Like I was very hardcore. Honestly, I surprised myself. When I listened back, I was like, who is this girl? I was talking to my older sister about this too. And she was like, yeah, like we were kind of scared of you. I would miss out on a lot of opportunities too, because like I was like, no, I have to practice piano. Like no, it's grandson mindset. So that brings me to my daily schedule. I actually had an article with my high school newspaper in 2021. It was my senior year. I was graduating, and they interviewed me, and they took a snapshot of my daily schedule, like the things that I did every single day. And this is pretty accurate. Okay, so 6 a.m. I'd wake up, nice. 6:30 I was at the gym. I don't know why, but I was at the gym. 8 a.m. I did social media work and breakfast. That's when I would do my stories, my posts, like everything. But TBH, I would also do it very late at night. But then 10:45 a.m. I had school, and the reason why I had school so late is because I was graduating early, and I took a lot of academic credits in my lifetime, like a lot. And I think when I was in sophomore in high school, which means 10th grade, I was like 15, 16. I was taking 10 classes total, I think 11 at some point, because, and by the way, standard is 6. So you can imagine the workload. And these were not easy classes. Like a lot of them were pretty rough, because there was like a bunch of college classes too. And then it was like 8 in my high school. Like it was a lot. I was spending a lot of time in school, and I've always loved working. And maybe that's when the toxicity started a little bit, because I just love like that approval. That's also something I've also come to learn recently is sometimes to this day, I still have to manually turn the A plus student off. Like I have to go like, Vera, whose approval are you trying to seek right now? Because the only approval you need is your own. There's nobody else approval that matters, right? But to me, still to this day, if I think back like a few months, sometimes like I just want to appear a certain way to people, to my parents, to like my family, to my friends, to my partner, even to my coworkers. Coworkers, I mean creators, like brands. I don't know. Like I just want to appear a certain way, and I want it to be always perceived, pretty much my whole life, honestly, as far as I can remember, in a very specific way. Like this productive, disciplined, hardcore girl. There's just like nothing stopping her. She's just so strong and so powerful, and she's so successful, and she's going to be so successful. And like her time is not wasted, like that sort of thing. But now, as I'm becoming older and like my brain is just maturing, and I'm truly my own person, now I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care how people perceive me. Like my parents can think I'm the biggest failure in the world, which I know they never will, because like they love me unconditionally, right? But they can think that, and honestly, like it'd make me sad, but it wouldn't bother me, because it's like it's their thing. People who go to my Instagram account, which now we have 119,000 followers. I have 119,000 people in our amazing Gen V community, which is incredible and so cool. I told you in the past few episodes, my goal is growth, and we've grown 8,000 over the past few days, which is really nice. Anyway, they can think I'm like, I don't know, daddy's money. Somebody actually, I had a video, and it got a bunch of hate. I don't even know why. Like, I think low-key conspiracy theory, I think that hate was set up. somebody must have rigged it and like wrote the first comment, which allowed all the other negativity to pour in, because I'm telling you, that was pretty unnatural. Anyway, there's a comment of like, oh, well, your dad's like president of a construction company. He makes like $1 million a year. Must be nice. Must be freaking nice. Manifesting that. Dad, maybe you can start making $1 million a year now. No. Reality is a little bit different. I am my parents' retirement fund, me and my sisters, because we're immigrants, and I am originally from Russia. I came here in 2013. My parents gave us everything, like gave everything that they had so that we can have a great life in America, like truly the American dream, you know? So it's a little different than what those people think. But point is, I'm just very open to perception now. Even my partner, like, he can think I'm crazy. He thinks I'm toxic productive sometimes. And I'm like, no. I wish you had seen me like 2 years from now. That was toxic. Like right now, it's just my natural self. Like I told you, I just have a motor within myself. I don't know what it is, but it's just always like, I just want to keep going. Like I just want to do things. By nature, I just want to do things. I really never have to force myself. I just want to do things. I love being productive. Like I love what I do. I love my life. So it just, for me, it's only motivational, you know? But today he was like, very, like, I think you have a toxic productivity thing. And I was like, I respect that, but no, not anymore. I don't. Anyway, so that was the tea, and that was my daily schedule. And when I say hardcore discipline for 2021 Vera era, I really mean that, because here's some quotes I wrote up that I created. Okay, this was in the article. Quote 1: death doesn't scare me, but reaching my full potential does. Sorry, death doesn't scare me, but not reaching my full potential does. There she is. Now I feel like none of this like really resonates, so it's really hard. That's what my brain, I think, is altering it a little bit, and I'm saying it wrong. Death doesn't scare me, but not reaching my full potential does. Do you get the vibe of this? Like what kind of headspace I was in? And once again, I really respect 2021 hardcore grindset Vera. I think she was great. Like she was great for what she was, and that allowed me to grow on social media a lot. If we're dissecting it from a social media perspective, because there was a lot of contrast. Like I was this young blonde, sweet looking girl who was like, death doesn't scare me, but if I don't reach my full potential, I'll literally kill myself. Like, what kind of idea does that give you? It's like a very great contrast, right? Because you don't expect that from a girl who looks like myself, you know? So, yeah, it was great for what it was. Second quote: motivation comes and goes, discipline is forever. I still stand by that. Still stand by that. Absolutely love that. Third, laziness kills more dreams than failure ever will. I was such a like philosopher back then. I still stand by that too. I think laziness is a big part of that. But back then, what's really funny is in 2021 Fair era, I used to think everything was laziness. But truthfully, there's a difference. Procrastination is when you can and you don't do. Laziness is that, actually, sorry. Laziness is when you can and you don't do. Procrastination is when you're just putting it off, right? But burnout is when you literally cannot, or like when you're just tired. That's when you just cannot. You have no resource. You're out of resource. And back then, I would really push myself. Like, if you look at my schedule, of course, I was young. And when you're young, you have more energy. Me talking about this, like I'm 50 years old now. No, I'm still young. Obviously, I still have a lot of energy. But on 6 hours of sleep is not like the vibe, especially when you have a lot going on. Because mentally and emotionally and physically, I was not recharging every day. I was chronically sleep deprived. And I was like, well, I don't need much sleep, because then when I do get enough sleep, I just feel so lethargic. That's because you're chronically sleep deprived, sis. Read Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. It's going to explain everything to you. So, yeah, I think for me, the biggest association there with discipline, people know me as like the discipline productivity girly, and I still am, of course. But back then, discipline was really associated to me with pain. For me, like, headaches were normal because, once again, I was undersleeping severely. Like, this is an optimistic schedule. It would honestly be a lot worse, because then after, when it's 12 a.m. lights out, quote unquote, it wasn't lights out. It was me like finishing a podcast episode, or me like editing a YouTube video, or me editing some video. So truthfully, I'd be sleeping a lot less. There are days when like 2 hours of sleep, 1 hour of sleep, 3 hours of sleep. And there are weeks on those hours of sleep, which is not nice at all. So yeah, pain, discipline was definitely just associated with pain, which is definitely not what that is at all. But once again, 2021 Vera era made 2024 Vera era possible, and I'm so grateful. So now let's move on to 2022 Vera era. This is where toxic productivity, believe it or not, really came into play. Because in 2021, it was toxic productive, but I was not burnt out really. Like, of course, I was having mental breakdowns and like spins because I was like, I'm not doing enough. But part of that was just going up. But truthfully, I was loving everything I was doing. Like, absolutely loving it. I loved that, which I think translated into masochism a little bit, like inflicting pain on myself and be like, yeah, I like that. Masochism has like a sexual innuendo to it, and I'm not including that, obviously. But point is, in 2021, like, I was actually loving my life. In 2022, though, I graduated high school early, and I just felt so lost afterwards. Like, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, because I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, right, full-time. But I just kind of started to realize that being a full-time singer-songwriter is just not for me. Like, I'm a different kind of person. I'm not an artist by heart, you know? And what I mean by that is artists typically, if you look at people who draw, people who create music, film, they're kind of like, I don't want to say all over the place, but it's like, I'm an artist. Like, I take inspiration from everything and like I write songs. They just pour out of me. For me, it's just not like that. I like more tangible things. Like for me, art, I always try to structure it. I always try to put art into a structure. That's really not what art is about, you know? So I'm just different by nature. And I just kind of started to realize that that wasn't my thing. So, you know, I got into life coaching and things really started picking up from there. But at first I felt very lost. And then also that same year, 2022, I had a breakup. Ugh, ugh, I was experiencing a breakup. Oh, how crazy, how scary. Which is funny to think about now because it does not feel like it was like 2 years ago, but yeah. And that breakup impacted me a lot. I am so sad that I didn't have a podcast actively back then because I just wasn't doing the podcast but I did have some YouTube videos and I have to rewatch them to hear my thoughts. But with the breakup, it just affected me a lot more than it kind of should. It was not that long of a relationship. Like I was like with him for like 6 years and then we broke up. It was relatively short in comparison to a lot of relationships. But for me, it just like hit. It just hit because tea time. But that guy was a pathological liar, low key. My theory, he lied about a lot. And for me, I'm a very trusting and naive person when it comes to things. Now I'm not, obviously. Like I've grown up, truthfully. But back then I was like very much, oh my gosh, you've been to so many countries. Oh my gosh, you run your own blah blah academy. Like, oh my gosh, you're so successful. Um, no, sis, he was not. And that shook me to my core because then after the breakup, I remember like I was driving home. I was driving to the library or home from the library, I think, because I'd work in like libraries and skip my art class. But this is when we get into the toxic productivity era. But I remember just driving and like thinking to myself, like lies would just that he would tell me would just start popping up, and I was like, what the like I just stopped trusting myself almost to discern good from bad in people, and that made me really sad. So point is, I had to channel my energy somewhere, and that's when I turned to toxic productivity. I think honestly, I had one of the biggest glow ups probably ever because of that great breakup, and I'm so grateful. I grew our community a lot. Like I did a lot of good, started making increased my income and got it to like a stable level, which is really nice. Did a lot, but had a fitness transformation. But it became toxic, and how I know it's really toxic is because I started waking up at 4 a.m. to grind, which is a telltale sign in and of its own. I was not getting enough sleep. Like this is the chronic sleep deprivation era again. I was doing like a billion things at once, and it just when I think back to that era, I do not remember a thing. Truthfully, it's really weird, but I just don't remember anything. I only remember it once I look at pictures and videos because it just feels like I was not even there, you know? And I just remember I didn't have a single time, like not a single second in my day that I would waste because all of it would go to work. Like I would work for fun and I had no social life because I have a bestie for the bestie now. And we were still friends back then. Like I'm very close with, very selective with my social circle. It's mostly my family, best friends with them. And I have a bestie for the bestie and some other friends, sure. But that's my circle. Like those are my people. And obviously my partner's in that because like my boyfriend, because it's my people. Those are the people I trust. Those are the people I go to for everything. Like I love my people, you know, and everybody else kind of is on the outskirts of the circle. But with her, we were friends back then. But every time she'd try to make plans, like it would stress me out. I'd be like, oh no, like I should be working at that time, which is crazy because now I'm like, oh my gosh, girl, let's hang out. But back then I was almost stopping myself from that because I thought it was unproductive. In 2021, 2022, well, 2022 different because breakup era, but 2021, I thought relationships were a waste of time. Truthfully, any sort of friendship you had outside of your family, romantic relationship, were just a waste of time. Like, what's the point? Get into a relationship when you want to get married and have kids. Like that's the right thing to do. Everything else, a waste of time. Which is so silly now because I'm like, I don't want to get married for another 10 years, but like I'm in a very healthy relationship, you know, that's on track to be pretty long term. Like I love it. And marriage is far away. Kids are far away. So obviously a lot of maturing there. And hanging out with friends really just stressed me out. Because once again, if you look at the 4 life areas, the only one really developed in 2022 was obviously health, because like fitness, that's the only one. Rest was not developed at all. Like none of that. But work and health, that is it. Like self-development too, of course, because I was doing stuff. But then I really started cutting things out at that point. Because once again, I was working a lot. Like I would have 16, 17-hour days. I'd go to sleep at 3 a.m. because I was working so hard. I stopped doing art. I quit it, which now I don't really regret it. I love art still. Like I know I'm good at it. But I was really passionate about drawing and I really started becoming great at it. But I quit it And I'm really glad I did because it freed up a lot of my time. I quit music theory. I was a bit passionate about that, but also once again just to free up time to work. And then once again, I'm really glad that I did that because I was taking like college classes. I never went to college full time, but I have a bunch of college credits because I've always loved learning. So it wasn't like for a major; it was just for myself. So it was a right decision for me at the time. But then things kind of started slipping away one by one, like hobbies, things I loved, and it was all just like work, work, work. I have nothing outside of that, you know. Genuinely, it was really interesting because I would be like, oh, like I would update my family, like, oh hey, like I'm going here once in a blue moon, and my sister would be like, oh, finally, like Vera, you needed that. All you do is work, and I'm like, yeah, that's really not a great time. So that was a little bit toxic. And once again, just no matter how much I did, it just never felt like enough. Now, 2023 Vera, this is where I found balance. And honestly, I have a lot my current relationship to thank for that. My current partner, boyfriend. I feel like I talk about it a lot throughout the podcast, but honestly, relationships is when you truly grow the most because it's like the person that you're with, whether it be friendship or relationship or romantic sense, they're almost like a mirror to you. And I think it's super cool. Genuinely, I think it's absolutely amazing. Because that's really when you start to see yourself in a different light, and then you kind of have another person's input and you kind of see where they're going and what they want to do. And that definitely alters your own perception, which I think is personally amazing. So now I'm very big on balance. This year, well, I guess it's 2024 now, but in 2023, I've succeeded greatly in my career, in my relationships, in my health, and in my self development, in all areas of my life, which I think is truly fascinating and amazing. And a lot of maturing has come about where I started to look at success, not just like how much money you make and how hard you work. And I also started getting out of the matrix of like, I'm self-employed. Okay. Have never been employed under a corporate structure. I've never worked a 9 to 5. I do not know what that's like. But obviously I have a lot of secondhand experience from my friends, acquaintances, sisters, like that family, so forth and so on. But in my mind, it was like, if I'm self-employed, like I have to be working more than 30 hours a week. Like I just have to be. Even if it's not work that is meaningful and that actually brings me results, I just have to be. Which I also talk about my 2024 rules. And that definitely is counterintuitive because that's not something I'm doing anymore. But yeah, I just really started, I feel like, clarifying my values and just seeing that there's more to life than work. Once again, my work to me, it's different because when I say work to you, it's probably like, oh, like, you succeed, or not to you, but typically the association is, oh, you're just succeeding to make more money, to do this, to do that, to gain respect, status, whatever. But to me, my work this year, especially in the past year, has really become my ikigai, which is like my passion, my purpose, what I'm good at, and what I can be monetized for. So it's much more than just making money. To me, it is my fulfillment, which is why for me, when I work on my work, it's also like I'm working on my hobby and I'm working on my self development, and it's very linked to my health too, because like I love what I do, so it really elevates everything. It's that healthy productivity. But yeah, and with the values too, I started asking myself what will truly fulfill me in this very moment, but just also overall. Because if you think of relationships, for me, I think in the past it was just very much defined of like, okay, in my 20s, I fully focus on work. Like I just truly start to make bank. And then, 30s is when I think about family, so forth and so on. But truthfully, if you don't have people around you that you love and trust, your success just doesn't taste as sweet because there's nobody to celebrate it with. We're social people. Like we're social creatures. We need to have people by our side. Whether that be a romantic partner, friends, or ideally both, and family too. Like we need that connection. Otherwise, life almost feels a little bit pointless. And it kind of becomes so. And that's something I really started to realize. Where, for example, right now, today, I spent a lot of time with my boyfriend. We were just like hanging out. Obviously, we're working. Like, we do a lot of productive things together. We go on runs, we work in coffee shops, which tomorrow morning is exactly what we're doing. But also, we do a lot of quote unquote nothing together. We just hang out, we talk. Today, we're watching Sex in the City, which is one of my favorite shows. We watched that together. Like we're in season 5 now. That tells you a lot. We didn't start the show. Well, I mean, we've been watching it for like a few months, so I guess that's fine. So that's how I spent a lot of today, just relaxing. And 2021 me would have been in shambles. She would have been like, Vera, you just wasted so much time. But to me, I know I just recharged, and I walked out like having so much energy, and like I just felt so happy. And if I could do the day again, I wouldn't change anything for the world. Did I accomplish everything I set out to do productivity wise? No, I didn't. I didn't go to the gym. I had to go to run this evening instead because once again, we just spent more time hanging out than I originally thought. Um, but would I change it? Change it? No, I wouldn't. Why? Because that fulfilled me. That was a great time. Like I really felt myself growing closer in my relationship, and it just felt nice. It's truly all about fulfillment because there's more to life than work. A lot of the success metrics that we came up with as people. like making an X amount of money. And obviously saying that I think is a very privileged take, not to be like privileged, but it is a privileged take in a sense where I was not able to see that when I wasn't making enough money. When I've had periods where I was like this was a little tight. I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this. But now obviously making enough money to like live and live freely in a sense where I can get myself the things that I like and do the things that I like. And I don't have to think about, okay, like I guess I have to dig into my savings account, like, because I really don't have anything right now. Because my savings account, BT Dubs, it's not just like, oh, savings. No, for me, it's like savings I do not reach into ever. It is savings. It still has some of my babysitting money from the time I was like 14. So it's savings to me. Like those, I do not touch that. It's my, not emergency fund, but just like savings. Okay. And that's dedicated towards specific goals for this year. So yeah, obviously saying that of like, well, there's more to life than money. It's coming from a place where now I am comfortable with the amount of money I make and like I'm good with that. And I know that it's consistently growing on a consistent basis because my business is thriving, doing really well, which I'm super happy about. And like I know how to make it do better. With brands also that I work with, like I know how to work with higher paying brands and how to do that because I figured it out. Like I know this, it's my bread and butter, quite literally. So now, of course, it's like, oh, there's more to life than money. But obviously, when you're in that space, it's very hard to see beyond that. So yeah, I think also something interesting is the societal traits to success. Like I talked about, there's I think a big shift with the European versus American culture. I cannot attest to the European one by experience. I just know because I kind of have heard about it. Confirm if it's correct. Let me know if it's wrong. But obviously, America is capitalistic society. And so it's a lot about this sort of hustle. Like you hustle and you bustle and you work a 9 to 5, but you put in way more than 40 hours a week. And it's like you're underpaid for your labor. And if we're talking about the typical corporate structure, but it seems like in European work culture, you work to live and not live to work. Where here, I feel like sometimes that notion gets confused. Obviously, because I think, and this is my personal opinion, but I think in America, you can definitely create a margin of your business and really scale it up to a point where it may be harder to do in Europe, as far as I know. But correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, it's possible to do anywhere. The point is, here it feels like sometimes you're just living to work, and in other parts of the world, you're working to live because the values are just different, you know? So, yeah. My work now, once again, it's really rooted in purpose and ikigai. So I just love it. Like I love social media coaching so much. I love being a content creator. I love having an impact with this podcast too. Obviously it's 9 p.m. when I'm recording this. It's almost 10. And easily I could just be like, like, okay, I'll just skip this week's episode. But to me, I absolutely rejoice in the fact that I have a platform and I can share my thoughts with our Gen V community and I can make somebody's day better, And if that also, if you resonate with that, if you listen to a single one of my podcasts and you went, oh my gosh, that was so cool. Like I gained some insight, then leave this podcast a review. 5 stars. 4 stars, 3 stars, whatever that may be, but I genuinely want your feedback and I'm just curious. And if you scroll all the way down to the YouTube comments or on Spotify as well, if I have any polls, just engage with that. Because otherwise sometimes it just feels like I'm talking to like a wall. And I'm like, is there anybody on this side? And obviously I know that there is. And I would just love for you to be part of that. So leave my podcast a review wherever you're listening. I'm genuinely curious. And I track with it. But anyway, and also something I want to bring up is how I know that all your life areas are intertwined is because when I finished my first half marathon that I trained for a few months for, 13.2 miles in a row, which is really cool, I have never felt such a surge of confidence in all my other life areas. Like I started becoming really bold in my career after that, Also, my career, a lot of it is dependent on reach, like how many people view me, obviously, which once again, 119,000 followers. We have a big community and that's so exciting. But I had the biggest surge of views. Like my views literally doubled on every single video when I was in New York with my boyfriend. And like we were just on a ferry. Like we weren't doing anything quote unquote productive. We were just traveling. We just had a trip, And I think for me, a big realization for the past year has been that especially for my type of work as an entrepreneur, where a lot of it is creativity, strategy, but creativity, strategy, execution, I would say, but creativity being that sort of foundational point, I have to be relaxed in order to perform it successfully. When I'm coming from a place of lack and I'm like, I have no content to post, like I have to create something, it never turns out well. Versus when I'm coming from a place of abundance, of like, I have so much to share, I'm relaxed, I'm fulfilled, like I'm calm, I'm resourceful, emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, then that's really when the kind of work that I create, that's like the crazy kind of work that takes me just to a whole new level, So to finalize this episode, here are my 2024 rules. Okay. aligned with my purpose, aligned with balance, because that's, I feel like, a big work for 2024, because I have a lot of goals in all my life areas. Did my vision board, listen to my previous podcast episodes to see how I did that. Anyway, so my 2024 goals is first, I think, working intentionally. Once again, in my mind, it's very hard to get out of this matrix of like, I have to be working during these times, which I'm self-employed. I do not have to be. Like, I set my own schedules. For me, for example, I do not really take any days off unless I feel like it. Most often than not, I don't, because once again, my work is my fulfillment. Like, I don't need to take days off because I feel very fulfilled and happy by it. Like, I love working. I would do it all day if I could, but sometimes I just get really tired, which is normal and human, and like, we need sleep, you know. But with working intentionally, just doing work when I have work to do instead of just doing meaningless things to feel like to make myself busy. Because I think with toxic productivity, also, and for me, for the kind of person I am, it's really hard to allow that space in and to let that space in, because I'm always drawn to just being busy. Busy for what? Like, what are you busy for? You know? I don't know. So that's one. Two is less noise and more mindfulness. I'm addicted sometimes to like having noise in the background. Like, I watch the same TikTok 20 times because I just like the noise. And I definitely want to get more into that mindfulness space of just being comfortable with silence and boredom. And thirdly is, this is a little more personal, but with deadlines, I've been kind of bad at it and slacking with it a little bit. So to me, nowadays, I want deadline not to be the deadline, but to me, a deadline is 3 days before the deadline. So that way I'm very much on top of my work and I'm very fast, quick, and efficient. Now, if you scroll all the way down, okay, let me know what toxic or healthy productivity era you're in, what productivity era. I'm actually working on something really exciting right now that's going to be happening on January 13th. Watch my Instagram stories to know what that is. But I hope you enjoy that when that time comes around. If it's past January 13th, 2024, then probably it's available in recording or something. Wink, wink, quote, quote. But go to Instagram to check it out. Otherwise, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your time, whatever it is, morning, afternoon, night. I am getting a little bit tired because it's 10 p.m. and I have to wake up at 5. So this is Jesus. My point is, I've made a big transformation. I'm very proud of myself for it. And just know that if you're in that toxic productive space, there is a way out of that. It may take a second and a little bit of practice, but truly just look at your values, look at your life from a bird's eye perspective. And I trust that you can come to a lot of insight. And if you have any questions, just DM me at Veranothing, VERANOTHING. I'm always here to help, more than happy to. And remember that we're launching success together and growing together always. Bye. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode, the first one of 2024.
3, 2, 1. Launch to success with Vera. V.